The 1930s, what an excellent decade of cinema. It was so good. The first decade that I can recognise current society in properly. Before this, there was some distance, but now I think it really is a lot down to sound, honestly. That really does change everything. It changes the sense of space and the experience that you get. Was it mastered here? Was it refined here? No, this was them figuring it all out, and there's something endearing about that. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about the worst 30s films. What are the worst ones? There were quite a few. And honestly, like I say, this was so strong, this was such a good decade that actually, it's only really the top 6 or 7 that are actually bad films. The first couple weren't abysmal, because this decade was that good. Maybe I need to see more films, I don't know. Maybe there's probably loads of really crap ones that I decided not to watch, and for a good reason. I got a list, this is the top 10 worst ones, and just a preface, like the last top 10 worst ones, this isn't going to have that same seriousness as the other ones. This is more about me just having a chance to sort of get it off my chest, get that anger out of my system, and create content out of it. So at number 10 we have Gone with the Wind, Victor Fleming's controversial, nearly 4-hour epic. This is probably going to be the biggest, most substantive review of this whole video. There's actually a lot going on, there's a lot to say about it, so brace yourself, this is going to be quite a big one. So this follows the life of Scarlett O'Hara. She's kind of like a prim and proper woman of the South. Her life's pretty good, she hasn't got many problems. She's constantly getting hit on by all these different men, she's got loads of options, but she becomes entangled with Rhett Butler. Now, Clark Gable, I've mentioned before, I really enjoyed him in It Happened One Night. So the angle that this film takes is because it's trying to be like a nostalgic, like, oh, do you remember those days, the old South, how good it used to be, before that civilization just disappeared, became gone with the wind. And obviously that's controversial, being that this is about the slave trade era, but conceptually I'm not actually opposed to that. As I say that, I can hear that sounds a little bit controversial, but let me explain this. When I first saw this, before I knew more about the backstory, I actually thought that was kind of what was going on. The very bold Technicolor contrasted with the imagery of slavery. I almost had to believe that it was an intentional sort of contrast, but it wasn't. It's not. It's just a racist film. There's nothing inherently wrong with doing a nostalgic depiction of this time period, but I think the problem comes from the intention of the filmmaker, Victor Fleming. He's a very controversial guy. He's massively right-wing. He supported the Nazi party, all kind of stuff. Yeah, when you watch it with that in mind, which you can't really not, his narrative is uncomfortable to watch. The overall depiction of black people is dehumanizing, and the film just never really treats racism as a serious subject matter. In fact, it's not really brought up at all. It had nearly 4 hours to address it as a topic, but it somehow managed not to. All that time you had, and it didn't even bring it up. Once before I said that I consider Victor Fleming to be the next D.W. Griffith, and that rings completely true here. Romanticized Southern account of the Civil War, just the racism in general, the epic scale of it, the pioneering filmmaking. It is basically a Birth of a Nation 2.0, and that's not really a good thing. But of course, some of the pros, it's incredibly impressive to look at. The scale of it is unmatched, like wow, some of these shots are just incredible. Particularly the shot when she's walking through a field of just wounded men, and the camera's sort of panning back, and it gets bigger and bigger until you're like, what? Yeah, incredible style and sense of direction throughout. That's undeniable. A great score by Max Steiner, who I essentially consider the original John Williams. He's done so many iconic scores of this era. The Informer, King Kong, Angels with Dirty Faces, all films with great scores. I think the first half of this film is the strongest. It had actual rising tension, the war was coming and all this. But then the second half is all about focusing down on the characters, focusing down on the relationships. But I don't give a fuck about that. It's a boring romance story. It's just insisting that I should care about these characters, and I don't. It really does peak with the infamous As God Is My Witness scene.
I'm going to live through this, and when it's all over, I'll never be hungry again. No, nor any of my folk. If I have to lie, steal, cheat, or kill, as God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again.
So yeah, this is an interesting number 10 spot just because it's simultaneously a really well-made, well-crafted and groundbreaking film, but I just fucking hate the story, hate the characters, and hate the politics behind it, which lands this film generously into my number 10 spot. Oh, and it's the first Hollywood film to use the word damn.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
At number 9 we have Becky Sharp by Ruben Mamoulian, who also did Jekyll and Hyde, a film that I was quite a big fan of actually. This is the first film to utilise the free strip Technicolor process, aka basically the first proper colour film. I've covered the 2-strip process and this is a massive step up from that. People regard Wizard of Oz as the first colour film, but actually it really isn't. If we're comparing this and the Wizard of Oz, both films are obviously incredibly vibrant, but somehow this film is actually more vibrant, cheapingly vibrant, gimmickly vibrant. It looks kind of ugly, to be honest, how just bright and glaring these colours are. So the story of this is basically Becky Sharp is a prim and proper Georgian lady, kind of like Scarlett O'Hara again actually, but the twist here is that she's a sociopath. She's constantly manipulating different people, trying to climb the social ladder.
Briggs! How dare you apologize to Miss Sharp at once? Miss Sharp! Dear Miss Sharp! Poor girl.
We were so unjust to her.
It takes a while to get into that. I really do think that the film would have benefited from just hitting the ground running. About half an hour of this is just kind of meandering setup. The film is just so badly paced in general. So much time is spent on side characters and plots that I don't really care about. The real substance of the story is to do with this person climbing the ladder. Like I say, that is the premise, but I feel like only about 30-40% of the film really explored that in a good way. She doesn't care about the people. She doesn't care about what they have to say, so skipping over that would have made actual narrative and thematic sense. There is a good version of this film. Watch Dangerous Liaisons. 50 years or so later, it's about sociopaths in a similar kind of time period trying to climb social ladders. That film really nails what this film should have been going for. Good ideas on display, bad execution, but a technical achievement, so number 9, I'm happy with that. At number 8 we have Damaged Lives, a very boring film about a very, very serious subject matter. This film is from the Devil's Harvest collection. If you don't know what that is, I've talked about it in multiple videos, but it's a load of PSA kind of films talking about drugs, sex, blah blah blah. This time we're tackling STDs. Essentially there's a man and a woman, they're in love, man makes a mistake, he sleeps with a hooker, then he marries and impregnates his wife. Through that he spreads the STD to her.
Joan has been under my care. I discovered that she has an infection. Bill, what do you mean?
Turns out he's got syphilis and now him and his wife have to navigate this. He's obviously overridden with guilt. She feels horrible about it.
Come on, snap out of it. Everything's going to be all right. What are you worrying about?
And the overall pace of it is just so exhausting, so boring, so much long-winded, slow talking where I can't even make out most of what's being said. It's just so slow. I was actually quite astounded by where I thought the ending was going. All this resentment that the wife had seemed to be building up to a point where she was going to try and sort of commit a murder-suicide with her husband. I thought that could have been a really great note to leave it on, but the film undoes all that. It just turns into a happy ending.
Darling!
And so now I'm just left feeling like STDs are bad and there's nothing we can do about it. So yeah, fuck this film. At number 7 we have Gold Diggers of 1935, a sequel to Gold Diggers of 1933, a film I really enjoyed. I really loved that film. This film is such a massive downgrade. My whole review of this will probably just be me being like, look at how much worse this is compared to its predecessor. The story of this is a girl, she doesn't want to get married yet, she wants to have a bit of fun with her youth. She's young, she's frisky, let me have some freedom and enjoy my life before I settle into a marriage. And then the mum sort of permits this. She's like, yeah, you have this window of time to go and do your thing. And that's the hook of the film.
If I let you have fun this summer, will you promise to marry Mosley in the fall without a protest?
Yes, I promise.
Well then,
Oh, Mother, you're a darling. And can I do anything I want to when I want to do it, as long as I don't disgrace the family name?
Simple in premise, but unfortunately also simple in execution. There's so much you could do with that idea, and yet nothing happened. And so much more silly than 33, but in a way that annoyed me, not in a way that I thought worked.
I could do this much better, but I'm frightened. He's got me scared to death with that meat axe he carries.
So try-hardy, it didn't feel natural. It's treading over the same sort of territory, but the story and the sequences are just nowhere near as good. Really, my dismay from this just comes from how disappointing it is as a sequel. There's 2 more films from this franchise that I could see, but this film literally killed my interest in checking it out. I no longer want to see the others now. I'm just going to stick with that original and not taint it any further. I will give it one thing, the ending was crazy and I quite enjoyed the ending, so that does save it from being lower down on the list.
I'll buy you this and that, you hear a daddy saying, and baby goes home to her flat to sleep all day. Good night, baby. Good night. Milkman's on his way. Sleep tight, baby. Sleep tight.
At number 6 we have What Becomes of the Children. Yet another film from the Devil's Harvest collection. You're going to see quite a few of these today. This film focuses on the impact that divorce has on a younger brother and sister. Now, I feel like I really needed some further context on this. In this film, when the parents divorce, the brother and sister are completely separated. Did that happen to people back then? Was that what happened? If parents got divorced, they would be sent off to orphanages? If that's true, that's a crazy issue that should definitely have been confronted, and in that case I respect the film.
I don't want you to go. And won't I ever see you ever and ever again? For you will free kid. I'm not.
Goodbye, Frederick. Be a good boy. Come on, Marion.
I like the premise here with the brother and sister sort of navigating childhood and all the sort of adults having their dramas and the sort of impact that that has on them.
Under these circumstances, I have little choice except to grant the divorce. As to the custody of the children,
I realise that I'm spending a lot of this video just saying like, oh, there's better films than this. You can watch a good version of this would be. And I'm going to do that again because a good version of this film, Fanny and Alexander, Ingmar Bergman's 4-part miniseries on a brother and sister basically navigating the same thing. So, you know, you have them being separated, it's all a big deal, and then we jump cut 10 years. Basically feels like we skipped ahead all the important stuff. It doesn't feel like a jump cut where it's like, where are these people now? It feels more like, I don't know what we're going to do with this story, so let's just skip ahead and cut to that part of the story. To which you get this underwhelming, melodramatic, like, oh, I've been separated from my sister, how different my life would have been, blah blah blah. Super surface level drama, very melodramatic and uninteresting. Just all these twists and turns leading to some kind of payoff which you just don't get. By the end of it I was just like, what was the point in that at all? At number 5 we have The Rules of the Game. Now this is probably going to be the most controversial pick for this list. People really love Jean Renoir. I'm personally a bit hit or miss with him. I recently talked about his war film The Grand Illusion. This is another war film and it kind of takes some of the concepts of The Grand Illusion to a more logical extreme. I made a point before about how he made this active choice not to focus on the battlefields, to focus on the prisoner camp. He takes that even further and kind of decides to focus only on the rich, higher class people. So this is essentially a satire on the pointlessness, sort of aimless lifestyle they live at the cost of so many lives. It's one of those films where I really think the premise has a lot of potential. I like films that say something with their form, like making a film that feels pointless, all to kind of summarise that, yes, their attitudes are pointless. When a film can really embody a concept like that and present it to you in a way that you feel properly immersed and can understand it, I love those kind of films. I think this film strived to achieve that, but the end result really was just an aimless film that had nothing to say. Yes, on the one hand, that's the point. On the other hand, I was just left feeling a bit disappointed. There's subtlety, and then there's doing absolutely nothing with your concept. The Grand Illusion did have a bit more of a comedic rhythm to it. This film could have done with that as well, I think. It needed something else. I like a lot of the premise, I like a lot of the ideas, and I love the direction. Renoir is an excellent director. But I think he overshot it with this one. I think he kind of relied too much on the idea of pointlessness in a way that underserved the big themes that he was tackling. This was at least an interesting one, but just a very mid film when it comes down to the experience of watching it. Perhaps a harsh choice for number 5, but I have to stick with it in terms of my personal enjoyment. At number 4 we have The Adventures of Robin Hood. Directed by Michael Curtiz, a director that I'm growing more and more distaste for as I explore more of his filmography. I recently watched Yankee Doodle Dandy as well, another film of his, and there is absolutely no way that film is not going to be in my top 10 worst 40s film list. I like a few of his films, but the more I see of them, the more inconsistent his work is becoming to me. Anyway, here he is directing a Technicolor film, another Technicolor film that came out before The Wizard of Oz. And in fairness, this is probably the first colour film that I think works. The story and fairy tale world that it's building is just suited for Technicolor, especially this early form of Technicolor where it's all very cheap and vibrant. With Robin Hood, I can get down with that. I love the matte paintings, it really does make this world feel expansive but charming. The overall art style, I can't really fault. And Errol Finn, I enjoyed him. He reminded me a lot of Ryan Gosling. I don't know what it is about him.
Men, if you're willing to fight for our people, I want you. Are you with me?
So those are the good parts, but the rest of the film... boring! It is just so boring, oh my god, it's hard to sit through. There's these super choreographed fight sequences with no real stakes because they just feel fake. It's all very generic, the music, the story, but the worst part of this for me is the romance plot. It is just unfathomably boring and mediocre. It's not laughably cheesy, it's not sort of endearingly dated and charming, it's just boring. This is the kind of film that puts people off old films. One thing I will say about the fight sequences actually is people do get killed, which is kind of nice to see given this is the Hays Code era. Whatever nice things I may have to say about this, the sheer boredom that I experienced outweighs everything. My main impression of this film is just boredom, boredom, boredom. At number 3 we have Cocaine Fiends. Yep, it's another one of these. So this one's about cocaine and the story is logical enough. These youths, they get into cocaine, they lose their jobs.
Yes, I'm very sorry, Fanny, but we can't use you here any longer.
And they spiral down from there. They don't care about getting another job, they care about doing their next line. Can't really fault it, it's not dated, it's just pretty shallow. It's not crazy or wrong enough to be any fun, yet it's also not deep or right enough to be an interesting analysis of the subject matter.
Please, Eddie, don't go to pieces. You gotta get hold of yourself.
I can't get hold of myself. I gotta have dope. I'm a hophead. I'd sell my soul for just one shot.
Far too overt, far too simplistic. This is essentially a 5 to 10 minute short film dragged out into an hour. So fuck this film, it's got nothing to say and I have nothing to say about it.
You mean I've been taking dope?
Yeah, dope. Cocaine.
At number 2 we have The End of the World, possibly the film that I'm the maddest at. So this is Abel Gantz's first sound film. Coming off films like Napoleon, The Whale, J'accuse, those are some of my favourite silent films, and then in contrast this, my second worst 30s film. It's a painfully average and underwhelming film about an incoming apocalypse. There's a comet in the sky and it's going to come down to Earth and destroy us all. It's kind of like Don't Look Up, which another film that I don't like massively, but somehow I actually prefer it to this. It's the same concept, comet hurtling towards Earth, it's the end of the world, but at least in Don't Look Up it has a clear focus. It's a satire on media and humanity and all that stuff. So at least that one is cohesive and, you know, has a kind of focus. In contrast, Gantz's film, with the same simple premise, is tackling religion, trauma, mental health, world government, corruption, family, rape. It's like he's just trying to stack on all these big concepts in hopes that it will grab someone's attention. It's all framed in a pretty simple situation. So it's about the duality of brothers and how that sort of factors into this end of the world scenario. But how does it factor into it? Watching the whole film, I still don't really feel like that was answered. He does the same kind of thing in J'accuse, where it's two polar opposite soldiers sort of brought together by a tragic event. And in that film, that duality concept works to explore the themes of the film. It's like Gantz knew he was making a sound film and was just panicking to say something grand and do something big with it. Every issue, theme and concept that was raised had no purpose in the wider story, nothing to do with the impending comet that was about to destroy the Earth. It's just a massive, desperate mess. I don't like any of the performances in this. All the acting is incredibly melodramatic and stiff. It's like a silent film with sound awkwardly placed over it. Gantz is an amazing director, and so I really would have thought that he would have had that foresight to understand that This is a new element that's being factored into this language. I need to take a step back, consider how this plays a part in the storytelling. But instead it just felt like he downgraded every element of his directing style and just relied on the fact that now we have dialogue, we don't really need to do emotive storytelling because we can just say it. That's what it felt like to me. And I really didn't like Gantz casting himself in this. He plays one of the brothers and he is not an actor, okay? I'm sorry, but he is just not a good actor. He played a side character in Napoleon and he wasn't good in that. But in that film, I forgave it because whatever, it's more of just like a cameo. He's not playing a main character. In this film, he's actually a main character and he does not have the chops to play a main character. Just melodramatic, like, oh.
Jure-moi, Martial, que tu vas profiter de cette chance unique dans l'histoire de l'humanité pour apprendre aux hommes à se comprendre et à s'aimer.
There are plenty of films from this same sort of era that have directors starring in their own films, but Gantz just did not recognise that he wasn't meant for that. That was not what you were meant to do. I'm sorry, mate. For a film about the end of the world, this was an incredibly forgetful film, and I resent it for being made by such an incredible director.
La fin du monde!
And finally, at number 1, we have Tomorrow's Children. Honestly, I'm just so done with these films. Like, fuck you. So the opening of this actually had me hooked. It was a direct attack at Hitler for practicing sterilization, sort of being like, stop this man's evil, sterilization is a horrible thing. I find it interesting to see this because this is 4 years before World War II.
Sterilization must be abolished from the statutes of this country.
When it got into the actual story, it all fell apart. Now, this is about sterilization, so it's not really a lot of fun. And that's okay with me. I'm here for a drama. I'm here for some dark stuff. Heavy subject matters. Let's go. Let's explore something serious. But the exploration of it was wafer thin. There was nothing said about sterilization beyond it's bad. And I think I knew that. So this woman wants to have a family, but she is sterilized because her family are poor, disabled, and alcoholic. What on earth is this film trying to say? Because on the one hand, it's saying, oh, it's so wrong that she was sterilized just because of her background. She can't help her background. Okay, I'm with that. But then it was also kind of saying like, oh, look at this woman. She's from the working class where everyone is disabled and alcoholic and horrible. I don't really know how to feel about that.
The baby died, didn't I tell you?
No one ever tells me nothing around here.
We did our best.
Well, that's all right. One less mouth to feed.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding some of the ideas on display here. The film had good intentions, so I'm not sure how much of this was a hateful thing. Whatever it was trying to say, it didn't feel very thought through. There is not a single interesting shot in this. It's all generically done, and all the dialogue is super shallow and spells everything out.
I thought that you considered human values as well as scientific ones.
I do consider that. Not for the sake of the individual, but for the good of the public at large. You've seen this girl's family. That's the most eloquent argument I can think of.
Oh, but why wreck her life because of them?
Yeah, even though it was so overt and spelling everything out, I still was confused by the perspective and morals of this film. Honestly, when I talk about these issues, it might not sound like the worst thing ever, but by the end of the film, I was really pissed off at how weak all these elements were. How can you make a film about sterilization and fail that badly? For that injustice, I have to rank this at my number 1 spot. You can justify it as much as you want by saying like, oh, the times were different, the perspectives were different. Yeah, I agree, but that doesn't mean that it's dated terribly and that my modern day brain fucking hates it.
How old is your brother here?
He's about 12 years, but he ain't got the sense of a 2-year-old.
I need to calm down because I'm getting all angry, I'm getting all sweaty. It's super hot here at the moment. There's a UK heat wave going on. But anyway, the 30s definitely had some duds. And I'd love to know if anyone else has any 30s films that they despise. You know, what 30s films do you hate? What did I miss? Give me film suggestions. And you know what? Like and subscribe. Why do I never ask people to do that? It's common practice, yet for some reason I don't do it. And let's stop thinking about the bad times and let's remember the good times.
You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers!
No, you prefer to hide it, pretend it isn't there. We have to accept certain things. I don't want to accept it. I want to be clean, not only in my conduct, but in my innermost thoughts and desires.
What you're going to see are the designs and pictures and stories that music inspired in the minds and imaginations of a group of artists.
Ladies and gentlemen, look at Kong, the eighth wonder of the world.
But you have to believe me.
I'm a victim of your unbridled imagination once more. What are you talking about?
I'm taking up with you where I left off. That was the agreement, and we're going to stick to it. Got it?
Yes,
But what?
Where shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
No, but he looks like a kid about 15 years old.
He won't be 16.